Chapter 23, Buying Time. If he could not keep his father from the job, Ethan reasoned, he could at least bend the job and make it shorter, safer, slower to reach the bad mornings, a smaller target for the river's weight to find. It was a humbler ambition than saving David outright, and Ethan had learned, this hard winter, to be humble about what a 7-year-old could do. He could not cancel the Vance job. The argument had proved that. But a job was not a single thing. It was 100 small parts: start dates, drive times, which crew, which days, how early in the dark, how tired at the end, and some of those parts, the small ones, the near ones, lay within the reach of a clever child who knew where to push. So he pushed. Quietly, indirectly, the way he did everything. He bought days the way a poor man buys anything, a few at a time, paying in the only coin he had. He got sick, not faking it exactly, but letting the body do what a stressed child's body does, and then leaning into it, so that there were mornings David could not leave at dawn because his son was feverish, and Susan needed a second pair of hands. He engineered small domestic snags, a misplaced set of keys, a car that wouldn't start on a cold morning because a 7-year-old had, the night before, done a small careful thing under the hood that a curious boy might plausibly have done. Each delay was nothing. Each delay was deniable. And each delay shaved a morning off the count, pushed the start later, kept his father home on a day the cold river might have wanted him on the road. He was not stopping the job. He knew that. He was buying time, trading a fever here and a dead battery there for days, the way you bail a boat you cannot patch, knowing all the while that the water is still coming in. But every day bought was a day his father was not on the 2-lane road, and Ethan had reached the point in his desperation where days were worth any price. But the buying had a floor, and he hit it fast. He could delay a start. He could lose a morning. What he could not do was make the job never happen, and the more he interfered, the more he risked the one thing he could least afford, being noticed. A feverish boy was natural once. A feverish boy every time his father tried to leave for one particular job began, even to loving parents, to look like a pattern, and patterns were the thing the second rule existed to prevent. A car that wouldn't start once was bad luck. A car that wouldn't start 3 times was something a man like David, careful with his hands, would eventually look into and understand. Ethan could feel the ceiling of his own interference, push past it, and he stopped being a sickly worried child and started being a mystery, and a mystery was a flare in the dark. So there was a limit to the time he could buy, and he found it and accepted it. He could not delay the job into oblivion. He could only delay it enough to push the dangerous mornings out of the random scatter of the whole winter, and into a narrower, knowable window. And a narrow window, he realized, lying awake and turning it over, was itself a kind of victory. It was the difference between guarding a whole season and guarding a handful of days. That was the reframe that pulled him back from despair, and it was pure second life thinking. When you cannot eliminate a threat, corner it. He could not stop his father from driving the road. But through the buying of time, through the delays and the reshaping, he could compress the danger, push the start late enough, shorten the job tight enough, that the truly dangerous mornings, the wet ones, the dark and tired ones that matched the worn photograph in his memory, fell into a window he could name. A week, perhaps 2, in the deep of the winter. Not a whole season of dread, but a handful of specific mornings, knowable in advance, that Ethan could pour his entire being into surviving. It changed the problem from an impossible one, guard my father against an entire winter, into a merely terrible one, guard my father across a handful of mornings I can see coming. And terrible, Ethan could work with. Terrible was what the second life was made of. He had unbroken a teapot and grown a coal in the dark, and combed a city for a drowned boy. He could stand watch over a handful of mornings. So he stopped trying to stop the job, finally and completely, and bent all his effort to the cornering of it, buying just enough time, in just the right places, to herd the danger into a window he could guard. And as the window took shape in his mind, narrowing morning by morning toward a stretch in the deep of January, he began, with the cold, methodical focus that was the best thing his second life had given him, to plan exactly how a 7-year-old was going to be standing in the right place, at the right second, on the worst morning of them all. The job could not be stopped, but it could be cornered. And a cornered thing, Ethan told himself in the dark, was a thing you could finally turn and face. He had bought himself a window. Now he had to be ready to fill it with everything he had.